When we talk about communication, or strategic communication, strategic storytelling, cognitive communication, we start to put all these silos and make things a lot more complicated that are actually very simple, and make things that are actually very simple remarkably complicated. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. As you see here, my lovely friend, the brain. It's about 8 pounds, it's inside your skull, about approximately the size of both of your fists put together. Now, I am not a neuroscientist, a psychologist, or any other level of ISK that would give me any particular credential to talk about this, but I have studied communication, and specifically cognitive communication, for the better part of the last 10 years. So I wanted to take a second and just show you something interesting about the brain and the power of stories that people don't seem to think about. So here we have this brain. I got this from a Halloween store, and then I painted it pink myself just to give it a little bit more depth. But if we open this up, and this is spaghetti. Inside your brain are 3 main things that involve thoughts. We have the reds, which are the emotions. We've got all of the processes, the hormones, the desires, the wants. I am boiling them all down to a single of emotion. That is remarkably oversimplifying things. But here we go. We have the emotion. Then we have the concepts. We have the actual concepts. We have up, down, left, right, around the corner, my house, my things, your things, the general concepts that we then use semantics to codify and put into simple things. We have the semantics. And then this is the syntax. This is our ability to put sentences and string them together and put it all together. Now, here are concepts and syntax. With concepts and syntax, you can put things together and you can make information. This is the news. Last night, 42 people did 42 things in 42 places. But without the architecture for it to connect to, we don't necessarily have anything that will drive us, connect us, or bring us to that. Also, with baseline information, it is remarkably hard for your brain to go from one state to another. Information by itself is just data. It is accepted into the brain. Emotion, on the other hand, we have emotion, straight, visceral emotion, things that turn your head, things that make you laugh, make you cry. Now, emotion by itself, especially when you start talking about empathy versus sympathy, seeing someone else in pain can move you, but it doesn't always. What we need is the story. A story is where you take the emotion, the concept, and the ability to express it, and we put them into a chain, braided together. The 3 different colors, the emotions, the concepts, and the ability to construct it all together. Taking this gobbledygook, that is just raw data, and it gives it structure, gives it architecture for things to connect to. This isn't a new concept. We've been seeing this since literally we started writing things on clay tablets. At the very beginning, it was all just information. The Sumerians and the Phoenicians made partial scripts that were only able to do things like numbers and accounting codes because all they cared about was recording information. When you go to the cave dwellings, same thing. It was mastodons and hunting parties. It had information and it had emotion, but it didn't have syntax. It didn't have the ability to explain what was going on. But when you take the syntax, the ability of putting things into sentences, you take the emotion, the joy, the sadness, the want, the give, the do, and you then pair that with the concepts to make a story. And now stories have been used in scripture, have been used to teach children. The cool thing about storytelling is it's one of the only ways that psychologists and neurologists have found that you can move your brain from one state to another, is because you now are actually braiding these things together and bringing things from one place to another and giving it a path. A good teacher uses stories, uses anecdotes, and there's a reason for that. Not just because it's more entertaining, although yes, it's because it gives your brain something to connect to. Fact of the matter is that there's a lot of people out there that had heard a lot about Alexander Hamilton. They knew a lot about him, but it wasn't until Lin-Manuel Miranda told his story with a syntax of music, with concepts that people liked, and emotion that were missed from the history texts, and he gave it a story. The interesting thing is that many facts and things from that musical aren't entirely correct, but it doesn't matter, because they've now been woven into the tapestry of story. Stories matter. Stories are not only super important, they are also remarkably dangerous because they can take you from one place and bring you to another. Because in a story, when the facts don't add up, it's hidden in the narrative. You can hide facts in a good story. But let me say this. Right now things are going on around the world and people are being hurt and people are using stories to devalue those lives. Black lives matter. The downtrodden are being marginalized and minimized, and they're using stories to do it. They're using a form of narrative structure, concepts, emotions, and syntax to make us afraid. They try to place the blame on the victim, using stories to do it. Now, this is not the last time you're going to see me massaging the spaghetti here. The emotion, the concepts, and our ability to link those together in a narrative. All those together, you need all three. And you need to be wary of all three. If people are using stories to dismiss people that shouldn't be dismissed, it's our job to cut through the strands and find the truth. Stories are an amazingly powerful tool. You can do so much good and so much damage with a well-crafted story. Let's talk about everything going on. The stories in the news right now, the stories on your feed right now, the stories that aren't on your feed right now, and the stories you're trying to craft for your message. Because if you can't relate to someone's concept, their emotion, and their context all together and weave yourself into their story, it won't matter.